It's a Tuesday at 3 p.m. You know what that means. Time for another DraftKings best ball draft here in the world of Stochastic. We'll be doing a 20-round draft, $15 million to first place, or $15 million in total. Sorry, $2 million to first place. Don't go to DraftKings, ask for $15 million. But it is a $15 million prize pool. The tournament's about 80% full. And I'm already in a draft room here, picking in the not even remotely influential 7th spot. But we're going to have a good time here, filling out my portfolio on DraftKings. And of course, here on Stochastic, you're used to the quality DFS content out there, the Sims tools, things that you help see people make, tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars here in the Stochastic community. Here in best ball, it's not quite as cut and dry as it is in DFS, where use projections, use Sims, you're going to find pretty good results more often than not. In the world of best ball, there are 3 rules of thumb to follow. Number 1 is being mindful of the average draft position, the ADP that you see on screen. No matter what platform you're playing on, it's going to tell you an important part of the picture. In particular, where this player is getting picked. Are you getting this player as a value? Are you taking them early? How often is this player getting drafted? If they're getting taken in the top 150, 180 spots or so, you're getting drafted about 8% of the time, a little bit more than that. So you learn the projection, the ownership, all of that through the prism of ADP. So use ADP for everything, soak up value where you can, and be mindful of how much ADP value you're giving up. A little bit less so at this stage of things. We could reach for guys like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt much earlier than anybody would ever want to. Second rule of thumb, stacking and correlation. You want to have your QB stacked up with at least one receiver, maybe an RB, maybe a tight end, maybe multiple receivers. You could stack more than you would normally in the world of DFS. So basically in best ball, you're trying to capture that rising tide of an offense. If you get a team right, you'll also have players sometimes ping-ponging great results back and forth. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins last year being a good example of that. So stacking and correlation, very important. And the last rule of thumb, being mindful that the big money is paid out in week 17. That's what matters. We're going to make our pick here, and I'll talk about that. Christian McCaffrey, a guy that I think should fall a little bit ADP-wise for the addition of Brian Robinson. I'll explain why I feel that way. Nico Collins, a guy I've wanted to keep getting some more of down the home stretch. I think credible cases for both here. I'm going to go the way of the receiver, go Nico Collins. But the third rule of thumb here, payouts in week 17. That's a really important one to keep in mind because people sometimes miss the forest from the trees a little bit as it relates to advance rate in best ball, where, yes, the more teams that you advance, the better. Still in best ball, though, you want to have teams that are built for week 17. That means having proper amounts of wide receiver capital and RB capital, not just spamming one position too much and not making it up enough with the other one in terms of volume and things like that. But also building teams that have week 17 correlation built in. Obviously from Stochastic, a lot of times the merits that can come from game stacking, capturing that environment. And best ball is even more pronounced where if you capture a game that scores 60 points in week 17, and 60 real life points that is, that might be the thing you need in best ball, to have the QB plus receiver, have a running back in the mix, have an opponent running back, wide receiver, tight end in the mix. So that's how that goes in the world of best ball. The payouts are in week 17. If you advance into the playoffs, you get about your entry fee back, a little bit more than that. If you get into week 17, that's where the top 10 payout spots are on DraftKings are all at least 100K, where the top prize wins you $2 million. Number 2 wins you over $1 million. That's what you get in week 17. So if you haven't played best ball yet, get in the mix now. DraftKings also gives you a free entry when you put in your first one, but now's the time to do it, guys. So you have 9 days until the season starts. So best ball entries got to happen now if they're going to happen. Shout out to all you guys watching live here too. We got the splashes, of course, my Splash Play Pod channel on YouTube and on Twitter, a place where you can watch my regular draft videos. I do appreciate you guys who watch me here. It's been 2 times a week on Stochastic for a few months now. So shout out to the team behind the scenes as well, giving me the runway to do it as part of this DraftKings best ball push. But also for you guys who have hung out, do appreciate you guys being a part of this journey to get some entries in. Frankly, been able to get more entries in on DraftKings this year because of having to be keeping myself honest about being on stream here a couple times a week doing DraftKings drafts, and hopefully the portfolio is better for it. Whole and wet, you can go for cut and try. Thank you for that. I should have probably read that out loud before saying it. Normie strive for Bengal stacks. Give me Cardinals and Vikings. I agree. Look, there's a lot of teams I have where started the build with Jamar Chase, get sniped on Joe Burrow, end up taking Kyler Murray on top of that, especially when I have Trey McBride in the mix. So certainly Cincinnati, Arizona, going to be one of the storytelling stacks of week 17. We'll see if it pays off. Brock Bowers a little bit after ADP with Nico Collins. Not a super unique combo by any stretch. This combo, if I had to guess, probably a little bit underdrafted because of where these ADPs have aligned throughout the entire draft process. These are two players that I like a lot. Bucky Irving, I would say, relative to ownership, one of my favorite running backs overall, one of my highest exposed guys, whether it is on DraftKings, on Underdog, on Drafters, the three main best ball sites that I'm playing on this year. So Bucky Irving, Nico Collins to start here. And Bucky last year, a guy that felt like one of the biggest wins of the draft process, ended up making a lot of money-winning teams in week 17, but also a guy that advance rate relative to his ADP, where he was going 150, 180 at one part of the draft process. One of the things I got most right last year, and a lot of times for me in best ball, that ends up with me jumping off the train of a guy in year 2. Anthony Richardson, I love as a rookie coming in. He got hurt after the month. It's not why I didn't take him. I didn't take him so much in year 2 because the price went up exponentially, and he really, on the underlying numbers, didn't perform quite as well. EPA metrics, I swear by, from Sports Info Solutions, a great data company if you want some real football data to mix into your process here with projections and stuff from Stochastic. But in general, for how things have looked, for how that goes for me in year 2, it's like you kind of course correct on a guy from year 1. Bucky Irving avoided a ton of tackles last year. Also one of the guys at volume, had a plus EPA per rush. Expected points added is that metric. But a 0.07 EPA per rush, 0.23 EPA per pass, 21% avoided tackle rate. You're basically talking, Jahmyr Gibbs territory in terms of plus efficiency, high avoided tackle rate. And that was year 1 where they didn't really give him the full workload. So Bucky, obviously the big play he made in the preseason, catching a touchdown, always something people are going to kind of hold in some more esteem on a PPR site like DraftKings. But the big thing for me is he was that great, putting up 1,500 total yards in year 1, where he wasn't leading that backfield until the home stretch of the season when they kind of figured out he was their guy. Now we have year 2 here, and you lose the OC and Liam Cohen going to coach the Jaguars, but still Bucky Irving had all the things underlying last year, and the offense should be similar enough. I think it's all upside for him. So certainly, though, in week 17, Bucky Irving in a range where I love the guy as a talent in terms of how I expect him to go progressing from year 1 to year 2. But in terms of just spiking in week 17, we need the points the most. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, similar upside for sure. Devon Achane falling a lot in rooms because of him having a soft tissue injury, which apparently is not going to keep him limited too long. But the calf injury spooks people after what happened with Christian McCaffrey last year. You see Achane going to pick 22. These guys all have very similar, if not better upside to Bucky Irving. So even if you love a player like I do Bucky, it's important to be mindful this time of year that you might not want to always take Bucky because the other guys there have equal validity, things like that. All right, so at this point, the best pick on the board, according to ADP, is Kyren Williams. Seems like RB getting people not taking RBs as much. Mike Evans, a little bit of a tier break at receiver for sure. We do have the Tampa Bay bet. But I'll go Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams getting new money this year, not quite James Cook money. You can make the case based on that alone to take James Cook ahead of Kyren Williams. But Kyren, one of the better red zone workloads in football. Now he's gotten paid the money, so we know they're not in a year where they're going to transition away from him, transition towards Jarquez Hunter or Blake Corum if they want. For Kyren, certainly he could lose the workload because those guys are so good and they end up beating him out. But right now, the money, you always want to follow the money in best ball in particular when guys get that new money. And Kyron's gotten paid as well as anybody this offseason besides James Cook. So we'll go Kyren here. And shout out Dirt on paternity leave. Congratulations on the kid. Hope the paternity leave is a good time for you. I know when I had paternity leave a couple of years ago, it was fucking awful. Seems like it would just be a nice vacation time. But no, you get for me, I had to, at that point, Luca was 3 months old. So I was getting him at that stage. And it was very difficult and very stressful. And Football Outsiders was going through all its first wave of shit. And I had to still deal with a child and get sucked into work when I was supposed to be on paternity leave. So it was not my favorite time in the world, but certainly hope it is a magical time for you, Dirt McGirt, sorry. New dad, Dirt McGirt. The name we want to have a kid, Dirt McGirt. But a 2 RB start, 1 receiver. Big thing here is to try to balance out my receiver capital a little bit better. So because we have Bucky, because we have Kyren, almost definitely want to take in a wide receiver with the next pick coming up. But certainly if we don't take a wide receiver there, we're going to want to add volume on top of it. Really important to be mindful of where you're spending your draft capital early on in the rounds, because that should dictate how you build your whole team from that. If you don't take enough RBs, then great. You're in now a hero RB, a 0 RB build. Want to start to hit RB pretty hard the following rounds. If you don't take enough receiver firepower, you definitely want to take 2 RBs, 3 RBs max, start hitting receiver at that point. or, 3 picks. You can make an elite QB there, an elite tight end if you want. But the point really is to be mindful of when you're going on these runs to keep things balanced. When you build teams where there's no middle ground, like our friend Robert Griffin III here is with the very classy Lemon Party avatar. If you build too balanced here, if he takes if you took a Jalen Hurts, a Jaden Daniels at this pick, sometimes those teams end up kind of feeling like nothing, where you're not strong enough each position because you kind of took a little too much of a balance. So being mindful of that process, having enough receiver firepower too, also an important thing, because people last year got by without a lot of receivers sometimes, and it's not always going to be the case. We got Devontae Adams a little bit after ADP. George Kittle, elite tight end here, would also be a guy I think I'd like to get more of down the home stretch. I have a hard time not taking Devontae Adams, though. He basically fell in ADP a good amount because Matthew Stafford has his back injury, which he is now practicing and playing through. And really one of few guys I mentioned on my Splash Play stream this morning, where I drafted on all the big best ball sites, talk about a similar concept here. But guys like Joe Mixon, Chris Godwin, we've gotten the wrong way on those injuries because those guys are now out for 4 weeks. Tyjae Spears, same thing after he picked up a high ankle sprain in the preseason. You saw him now. He's going to be out for 4 weeks. He's on the injured reserve to start. So at the very least, you're going to see those guys not play for the first month. For Matthew Stafford, it was all the concern in the world. People thinking he might not ever play again. And he's back out there. He's been practicing for a week and change now. Certainly more than enough time to build the rapport as much as he needs to with the Devontae Adams. More than enough time to get ready for week 1 coming up, in another 10 days or so. I guess 11 days for more than that, whatever. More than 10 days for the Rams. He's got enough time to kind of get where he needs to go. And you have Puka Nacua, you have Adams now at a lower ADP because there's this risk involved with Stafford, which is now not materialized. And you make the case that the risk is still there long-term, but frankly, there were back concerns about Stafford going back to last year. People just didn't freak out about it quite as much because he was still, in practice, working on the sidelines, things like that. But for Devontae Adams, he fell to pick 42 for literally no reason. So I think you buy the dip for a guy that was previously going 25 to 30 in most rooms. But we got picks coming up here, a pick coming up here. 2 receivers, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, 2 RBs, Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams. All guys I like so far. We haven't scooped anybody just because they are an ADP discount. And, that could sometimes be a temptation. No, if I wish my guy Robert Griffin III weren't picking here, because he is going to take Kenneth Walker, as he should. And I would have actually been very open to taking Kenneth Walker there. I've seen DJ Moore falling in every draft today. I'm not really sure why. Emeka Egbuka, another guy I'd like to get some more of. I just think projection-wise, I would favor DJ Moore. But I've got the bet on Bucky. I don't have enough Egbuka. Certainly have not wanted to buy the rise too much because I think right now you're paying for him to likely seed times Chris Godwin at some point. The bet ADP-wise, you're making an Emeka Egbuka right now is that he starts the year for the Bucs. He plays so well that Chris Godwin never reclaims a role. And I think that's plausible for sure. And I have enough Chris Godwin to make that bet. But I think there's people that make the Egbuka bet exclusively and don't make the Godwin bet at all. And there's a very plausible reality where Chris Godwin, even if he misses 8 weeks somehow because his recovery from his foot and ankle is that bad, Chris Godwin could be back to what he was doing last year by the time we get to week 17, when we actually need that spike week the most. I think people don't really have that in mind with the incredibly rising Egbuka position. But because I have so much Godwin and we already have a bet on Tampa Bay, I'll go Egbuka at pick 55. But I do think for me, DJ Moore, I don't know. He's fallen in rooms I'm in every single time, and I don't really get why, especially PPR here on DraftKings, where he's getting some looks out of the backfield now. I think it's actually been pretty good news for DJ Moore this year, even though, the initial parts of Ben Johnson were him kind of course correcting on DJ Moore, throwing some tantrums on the sideline last year with Caleb and how that offense went for Chicago. I don't know. I think DJ Moore and Zay Flowers, I just think they both should be ahead of Egbuka personally. But it's now about, balancing your portfolio more than that. Godwin going 130 is crazy value. I agree. Especially on, again, full point PPR sites. The main thing is how you're building your teams. Like if you have teams where you have 4 credible, decently projected receivers and you have Chris Godwin on top, at that point, you've got enough to carry you through, as long as you got those picks right. And then Godwin coming in is just kind of a cherry on top of the sundae. I think that's how you should be viewing Godwin and teams where you have Godwin. You took him earlier, as I certainly did. I believe in the guy in the 60 ADPs. You just hope the team around that is solid enough to be able to get you through, the month plus that he's going to miss. DeAndre Swift hanging around here. Travis Hunter, another guy I don't mind getting some more of down the stretch. I feel pretty good at RB with Bucky Irving and Kyron. Do want to make it up a little bit more at receiver. So take another young guy, Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter certainly falling in ADP for the most part of people being concerned about him playing DB, playing corner, and also playing on offense enough. But the route share for him, the snap share from him has been about 80% with the first team based on what we've seen in Jacksonville, reporter reports in camp, what he's done in the preseason so far. For Travis Hunter, I think that's what you're buying in on still. And, he is a guy who had enough draft capital going top 3, and largely because the team wanted him at receiver. The hope is that you get that upside, that spike week potential enough, no matter where you're taking him. As a total points play, like some formats out there, not as crazy about Travis Hunter personally, but he was great at Colorado relative to a lot of my metrics. Target earning, rock solid. EPA, very efficient. I have no issue taking Hunter at this spot. I just kind of wonder for me, like Odunze, I think a year 2 breakout seems very plausible. Rashee Rice still should be playing when we need him in the playoffs at this point. He's going to either reach a reduced suspension or he'll get the 8 games, but get them around week 5 or so. So he should be good for the playoff run. I like a lot of guys in this range. That's the hard part for me with Travis Hunter. Deebo Samuel, I'll take over Travis Hunter 10 times out of 10 just because I think the touchdown equity is going to be huge for Deebo this year. But Hunter definitely has upside similar, kind of like we were talking about earlier, where you're in pockets. You could like a player a lot. I could like Bucky Irving, but have to recognize that Taylor can score more points in week 17. Achane can. Same thing in receiver in this range where, even Judy, I'm not super stoked about. I think a lot of his production last year, Tillman too, same thing, came when it was really the governor being off Jameis Winston. And you're paying an ADP price tag for that run those guys had. There's still enough potential for these guys to spike, when you need the money that, that's the whole part you're balancing exposure wise. And it's a really important part of best ball that you miss sometimes because a lot of it becomes, I think, in content, let's get our players right. Let's get every player correct. But in reality, if you're putting in 150 entries on DraftKings, trying to take the big shots of that prize pool, balancing your exposures in areas where it's kind of a flat projection, imagine stochastic projections week to week, how these guys look. Being mindful of that is kind of important in a lot of these ranges where it is so position heavy. So anyway, that's a rant, but just throwing out all the best ball thoughts at this point because we've only got 9 days left. But 2 RBs, 4 receivers. Juwan Jennings goes to Robert Griffin the third, right in front of me. We do want to get Baker Mayfield. He is an important part of what we're doing. A nice fall on Sam Laporta, though, I think makes this team a little bit more balanced. I'm going to go Laporta here, and I'm going to hope Baker comes back around the bend. I should have checked first. The Mike Evans drafter is to my right. So Baker's not going to come back to me. Should have checked that first. We want to make a Baker bet, but if I had to guess, Baker's going to come back to this guy at 89. At the very least, he'll go there. And that's one little thing to do if you are doing a best ball draft. Being mindful of where your stack partners are is going to always be a thing that helps out, or other people in the room rather that have similar players from the team. So Mike Evans for Tampa Bay here. It won't matter to this guy necessarily that I have Igbuka and Bucky Irving. My bet for Tampa Bay is stronger, but he'll have Evans. He'll see Baker possibly coming back. Will likely not get Baker as part of this team. If somebody else here doesn't take him unstacked around the bend too, which is always a possibility on DraftKings. TJ Hawkins is going to be peppered with targets early in the season. He's going to be a monster. I think he's a fine play. I mean, Minnesota's really trying hard to get another receiver in. They keep flirting with Adam Thielen. If Thielen goes there, I know Thielen's not a fun click at this point. He's been a guy who understands this offense. It's a big part of why they want to get him as opposed to somebody else. If any receiver they wanted to trade for, they wanted to have some experience with the Kevin O'Connell offense or an adjacent one that's got enough similar principles. So Thielen, I still think Carolina doesn't want to give him up based on the fact that they've said as much, and they've previously talked as well about wanting him to be, a safety blanket for Bryce Young because he's kind of played that way. Bryce has had his best games when Thielen is out there being functional. So I don't know that Carolina wants to give him up, but it seems like the Vikings are really pressed to get him. So if you get Thielen injected to that offense, he's been really good since going to Carolina. I'm not an old receiver lover, especially a guy like Thielen who, outside was where he was so successful, had to move into the slot because he just didn't have that juice anymore. But frankly, he's been Keenan Allen quality, if not better, in Carolina. So if he goes to Minnesota, I think the Hawk bet is more of a volume bet for the beginning of the year, and also one too where like McCarthy's going to throw less overall. If I had to bet, I think he'll have the governor taking off him a little bit more than he had at Michigan, where he was basically treated like a game manager. But I'm not sold that it's going to be like a gunslinging offense if they can avoid it. They did bring in Jordan Mason for a reason, to have that power run game a little more plentiful. So I don't know. But anyway, Sam Laporta on this team now. Waiting to see this guy just take Baker Mayfield to pick 89. I know how these rooms go on DraftKings. If not this guy taking Baker Mayfield with his 2 QBs already, because that's also how it goes on DraftKings. Yep. It's so stupid. This team is so fucking dead. This team you have 2 receivers in 8 rounds, and one of them is going to be suspended for a quarter of the year. I knew I wasn't getting Baker, but that's the stupidest way to not get Baker. This guy with Mike Evans taking Baker, sure. That was dumb. That was real silly. We have a 2 running back room, 4 receivers. Really don't feel the need to go up and get a QB because Baker Mayfield is gone. I've been more open, took this guy on my Splash Play pod channel earlier today. The bet's a little more logical for other guys, but I want to get some Krosky merit here down the home stretch. I think the price tag, top 90 in this range, is fair enough. I still greatly prefer, relative to ADP, taking Austin Eckler for free, but Eckler's going to be limited in terms of the volume he gets this year because of the fact he has been banged up historically. This team fancies themselves a Super Bowl contender, and they do, based upon the amount of vets they brought in and the fact they made the NFC title game last year to do the Washington Commanders. Like, they're going to want Eckler to be healthy throughout the year, given his history of concussions and other injuries as well. Soft tissue stuff he had when he was a Charger. Like, Eckler's been banged up a lot. Krosky Merritt's going to get a good portion of that workload. Do I think he is as good as the memeing is right now, where every gambling handle is like, Bill Krosky, blah, blah, blah. Like, and the amount of people, if you're in a redraft league out there, people in your home leagues are like, wow, Krosky Merritt, man, this guy's the one who's going to change this game. I don't think he's that good. He's a 24-year-old running back who's only played dog shit competition before going to Arizona, getting disqualified in terms of his eligibility. And it's like, and granted, the Commanders have talked really highly of him. My personal belief is that they would have talked highly of literally anybody in this rookie class, where you had a ton of strong athletes at RB, ton of guys with at least moderate amounts of juice, if not in the case of a Genty, of an Omarion Hampton, like elite levels of upside and juice and earning touches and EPA per touch kind of stuff. All the things I would look for. You have enough backs that fit that criteria. They would have loved anybody that would have come into this class. They would have all looked amazing next to maybe, mediocre, I would say a mid-tier running back like Brian Robinson. So I think that's really the biggest thing that I feel like with Krosky Merritt. It's like, I think he's just a dude. Being just a dude and for the Commanders can mean being great because Jaden's that great. You still have, Jaden is the first option at RB. You have that too. I think Jaden putting up 1,000 rushing yard year, if he's healthy, is very much a possibility. That inherently pulls, and again, a data forward site like Stochastic pulls from that projection that you would have from a running back. But, can Krosky Merritt get 100 yards in a game where like they have the lead and they're just giving him some touches because he's the fresh legs and they want to see what he can do? Absolutely. So I want to take Krosky Merritt more, and I'm taking him now at pick 90, and that's my justification. But I hate the price. I had like 4% of him on DraftKings for free going into 20th round, 19th round, stuff like that. Now it's like you are fully paying for, if not ceiling, good amount of floor and ceiling. All right, we've got 3 RBs, 4 receivers. God, receiver is so ugly on DraftKings at this point. Keenan Allen used to be free, and now it's like you got to pay a top pick for him. I'm going to go Charbonnet here. I'm going to make the RB room a little bit better. I still think my top 4 receivers strong enough with having Nico, Devontae Adams, Egbuka, and Hunter. Those guys all seemingly starters, all have decent enough roles. But I think you can make the case, take Keenan Allen, get wide receiver 5 done, make that room feel pretty solid. That'd be a decent case as well. Krosky Merritt is 4.4 speed. That's fine. And again, that's why he might be good enough in this offense that I think would make anybody good. But like you've seen in the preseason, Chris Rodriguez, who's not a special talent, breaking 40-yard runs. You've seen Krosky Merritt break a 25-yard touchdown. Look great. It was also completely wide open block for him to run through. I'm just not sold he's a special talent. Again, 24-year-old who hasn't played anywhere, hasn't played SEC level competition, let alone Big 12, Big 10 level competition. Played fucking nothing. That's the main thing. And it's a thing too, was really one of the biggest parts I feel like that I've learned from multiple years doing this content, also creating content early on. And the rookie cycle is like, not only the rookies have to land in a perfect spot, they also generally have to be great. And then they have to, kind of have those two things come together. And certainly you can have guys who are like average, they land great volume, they're really good. But for year one, a lot of times it's like, it's gotta be, you were great. And then you also got the good run out. I'm not sold Krosky Merritt's great. I think you put Giddens in that backfield, they would have been like, whoa, DJ Giddens is so great. Let's cut Brian Robinson. If you put, I don't know who else. If you put certainly Jency and Hampton there, if you put Travion Henderson in, they would have been like, holy shit, we got to get this guy more. Like, it would have worked out that way with anybody. It just happened to work out that way with the 7th round pick because that's Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson's a plotter, and leagues don't like plotters anymore. Keenan's ADP skyrocketed to the point I can't even click on him anymore. I mean, I still think he is in that group of guys for wide receiver 5 that work. Christian Kirk, to me, I've said from day one of this draft process, Kirk and Mims was like my wide receiver 5 kind of cutoff point no matter what platform I'm on. But similarly, would say now Josh Palmer being that guy. But Keenan Allen is now priced ahead of Mims and Kirk. So you got to pay. You're paying full freight for Keenan Allen. I do hope you guys bought Keenan Allen a little bit, though, because I was on stream here on Stochastic pretty regularly, kind of talking up the Keenan Allen being free thing. And whether he's good or not this year, the CLV is definitely helpful for me losing CLV on all the injured guys. All right. Waiting for the Savant here who's got 3 QBs. Who does he take now? He's just timing out. He takes David Njoku. I mean, I think we're now at a range where I might just take Keenan Allen. Slight ADP discount. I am going to go Keenan Allen here. I was almost going to take him in that last pick as wide receiver 5. Now, having come back, we've got 4 RBs. I want to solidify the position. And Keenan Allen, even though I know he was never a sexy click for a lot of people didn't want to take him for that reason when he was a free agent. He was still a guy that spiked very meaningfully for that Chicago room last year. Frankly, was a better targeter, a more efficient player than DJ Moore and Rome Odunze were. And those 2 guys, I think, new lease on life for them with the Ben Johnson offense. The fact that Keenan Allen outplayed those guys in kind of a dog shit situation, I think speaks to Keenan Allen's natural ability to earn targets and be efficient and effective. And now he's going back to a situation where the last time he played for the Chargers, he was like a top 10 receiver. I still think Keenan Allen is draftable at the spot. That said, if I had Christian Kirk come back, I probably would have taken him over Keenan Allen. So there we go. Washington makes everyone look good. I agree. I think last round McNichols, not a similar probability to hitting as Krosky Merritt is at this point. Like Krosky Merritt was the reason they felt enough faith, like, oh, we can get enough touches out of this room. It's still a thing where I do believe that like Krosky Merritt ahead of McNichols for sure and how they're being viewed. I think maybe not as far ahead as people think, but I think definitely ahead. Krosky Merritt's bewildering. He's got real hype, but also ironic hype. I agree. And still more people think he's all overrated. I agree with that too. Like you're summing it up for me, Porzingis. But I think Krosky Merritt, it's one of those things where it's like, how much do you buy into the drumbeat of the preseason? And that's a big thing too, where like, for me, I think the drumbeat this year was for markets overreacting in draft rooms because one player, Elijah Arroyo would be a great example where it's like, he had some good camp hype, was working with the first team a little bit. People were then steaming him up to like the 14th, 15th round. And it's like he had some real flaws as a prospect. He didn't earn targets well at all, was under 20% a target per out run at Miami. And that was an aggressive offense with Cam Ward. He didn't really get a ton of target earning there. So I think for like how that looks, that's a microcosm of it. Krosky Merritt just happened to be the drumbeat was right the whole time. And like, that's a separate thing. We're going to make the bet here on CJ Stroud. We've got Nico Collins. Need to start grabbing some QB. So you can make the case with how QB pockets align that I might have wanted to take QB the last round and then try to grab another QB here. But I did feel like adding in Keenan Allen was enough of a worthwhile thing to do that I didn't take, say, take Trevor Lawrence or CJ Stroud early, take the other one this pick. But you could have done it that way if you like feeling a little more secure at QB. So let me give this team a read. We got CJ Stroud as our first QB off the board. Bucky Irving and Kyron Williams. Again, feel good about that RB room, so that's going to allow me a little more flexibility, hopefully, in terms of how many running backs I draft. Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, and Mika Egbuka. Would like Egbuka more as a wide receiver 4, but we're making kind of an anti-Chris Godwin bet today for this team, so I can live with it where he is. Sam Laporta, my semi-elite tight end, is a nice ADP discount. Travis Hunter, wide receiver 4. Krosky Merritt, RB3. Charbonnet, RB4. So these guys, if they don't hit, we still have Bucky Irving and Kyron Williams carrying enough water. And Keenan Allen, wide receiver 5. I think this room really comes down to, do I get enough at QB to feel good about this team? And it's getting tougher because this corner is really getting QB frenzied here. I don't agree with that. Woody Marks over Krosky Merritt. I saw Woody Marks play every game at USC. I do not think he is a special prospect. QB is getting atrocious at this point. We have a pretty big opposite side bet for Tampa Bay for week 17. So I'm going to go up and grab Tua Tagovailoa. I think there's some appealing late options for him. Malik Washington getting some nice late hype. Also getting an ESPN puff piece because he's riding boats with Tua, and it's apparently part of his effort to make a bonding relationship with Tua, so he'll be trusted more on the field. Sounds insane, but given the fact that I have no faith in Tyreek Hill, who hasn't practiced in 3 weeks, I think getting more Malik Washington late here feels good, and we have the Tampa Bay bet, so Tua, QB2, as the QB frenzy gets a little pronounced. Bryce Young went at 123, which is always kind of a canary in the coal mine of there being an uncomfortable QB run coming up. So that's my logic for taking Tua early, something I never do. But anyway, with Woody Marks, and I'll pull up the numbers real fast because we have a few picks before I go next. Woody Marks is just a guy that's got like no juice is really the big issue I have with him. He had a 12% avoided tackle rate. Granted, USC played legit competition, but in general in college, you want to have guys at like a 33% avoided tackle rate because that's going to come down to like 20 to 30 when they're in the pros. So we're talking like really no shiftiness at all for Woody Marks. Positive EPA per rush, 0.11 EPA per rush. Earned a lot of touches per game, 21 opportunities per game, 20.4 of those were actually materialized in a touch. He ran 20 routes a game, but only a 0.03 EPA there. Similarly bad avoided tackle rate. Not great target earning either at 23%. Like Woody Marks is really, to me, just a dude. He also was not one of the freak athletes in the class. I get now with Mixon being banged up, people think it's going to be this great thing for Marks. I think what's likely to happen there is either Dameon Pierce breaks out finally because he's now old enough, has enough experience, and still is shifty as hell, as he has been his entire career. He just hasn't been smart enough to pick up an offense and be good at it. Either Dameon Pierce breaks out while Mixon is gone, or that running back room is total dog shit. Mixon comes back in and he's back to like some sort of bell cow workload. If you think Mixon ever plays this year, that's a different bet for you, but I think Mixon plays, and I also think Woody Marks was one of the most mediocre USC running backs I've seen in my now almost 20 years, actually, no, over 20 years since I went to college of being a USC fan. Woody Marks is not very good. And again, he wasn't even good as a pass down back. I get people thinking that, but he really wasn't a great target earner. He might be trusted in pass pro a little bit more. So in that respect, maybe he stays on the field, but he's been behind Darian Mubawale in camp. So it's not even like you're getting, like for DJ Giddens, he's the RB2. He's been ahead of everybody for the Colts the entire offseason. He's the RB2. Woody Marks is like RB4, and he's not very talented. He played legit competition at USC. I'm going to say that again, but he's not very talented. And QB, I think we can wait. I mean, Tank Bigsby, a pretty nice faller here. Luther Burden, also a pretty nice faller. I don't feel like I really need Tank Bigsby. But we got a Jacksonville bet already. I'll take Tank. I'll take Tank. So what? It's in college, a lot of the stats are just, especially counting stats, are just what a team wants to give you. Chase Brown averaged 30 touches his last year at Illinois. He was not good for USC last year. You take Woody Marks as much as you want. Just because you got fed targets doesn't mean whatever. It's a lot more will than skill in college offenses. Krosky Merritt contribute in the passing game. So like here's the thing. Krosky Merritt could probably contribute more in the pass game that like Woody Marks probably contributes less in the pass game than people think. I think both are probably the way it is. The people are under projecting Krosky Merritt's ability to be involved in the pass game. Like Eckler is going to be the primary guy there. But Krosky Merritt could still be like the reason they kept Krosky Merritt was that he allowed them to show multiple looks. Like Brian Robinson, you're not showing pass game looks really with Brian Robinson, even though he's actually wasn't a bad target earner. And I do think a little bit undervalued there, kind of like a Nick Chubb was before his ACL injuries. But like for Brian Robinson, it's like you're not showing pass really when he's out there. They want to be able to show pass and run with things. And they thought Krosky Merritt allows them to do that. And they thought Chris Rodriguez allows to do that more than Brian Robinson while still bringing enough power. So that sort of was the logic for why they got him in. So like to say that, and not that anybody in the chat's saying it, but like in general, it's been one of the dings on Krosky Merritt. And I say this is something that's not a huge fan of his. He like, they put him in because he could show both. And like, he probably will earn some targets just through the inertia of that. Because it's a team that loves to scheme some easy targets for Jaden when they can. Like Jaden, I was going through the QB numbers as I don't think I mentioned on this stream, mentioned on my Splash Play stream earlier. And Jaden last year, in terms of his catchable ball rate, 82.3%. You're talking about right behind Joe Burrow at 84, Tua at 86, where they're scheming him really easy stuff. Same thing for Baker at 86, ahead of Jared Goff at an 80% catchable ball rate. Catchable ball rate is one of the most important QB stats there is. It's also a reason why Anthony Richardson, he fell off the cliff last year. Why I also have faith in a guy like Justin Fields this year is like, if you're getting the ball where it's supposed to go for the most part, the offense is going to run well. Bo Nix excelled at that in college. He carried it over fairly well as a pro. Bo Nix's catchable ball rate, 79%. So point being is like, if you're in that range, you're really good. Jaden in year one was towards the highest end of catchable ball rate already. So he's going to make it work for whoever's out there with him. I mean, it's been my big belief with Jaden, but it continues to be that. All right, we got the Rams bet here. I could certainly try to push Stafford back around, but nothing at that receiver I feel like I need to take right now. So I'll go Matthew Stafford here. A little bit ahead of ADP, but barely. But our third QB, when we have two immobile passers with Stroud and Tua, and frankly, guys, too, where again, if you're imagining the stochastic projections week to week, I don't think you're envisioning Tua and Stroud having 20-point projections. You want to get that third QB in, and we have that big bet on Kyron and Devontae Adams. So we'll add Matthew Stafford on top. The team right now, Stroud at QB, Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams, again, two solid RBs up top. A receiver, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, Abike Egbuka. Tight end, Sam Laporta, got a nice value on him. Travis Hunter's wide receiver 4, not my favorite wide receiver 4. I think I would like to see more if I'd taken Debo, but I think it's still working. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, Zach Charbonnet, Keenan Allen is wide receiver 5. Tua Tagovailoa, we haven't stacked them up yet, but I talked about some guys I'll consider later on. Tank Bigsby, nice value on him. I don't get why he's falling unless something is broke on stream while I've been on stream since noon. And Matthew Stafford rounding out the QB room. So 3 QBs, 5 RBs, 5 receivers. I think with where we took our first 2 RBs, you can make the case I should have one more receiver at this point, just kind of quick mathing the draft capital buckets and how that works. But I think the team still works well enough. Would like to add some more volume at receiver down the home stretch, though. Our guy, Robert Griffin III, feels like he's painting a fun 3 QB team. So you got Jared Goff stacked up with J-Mo, bringbacks of Jefferson, Jordan Mason. So that's week 17 correlation there. Caleb Williams stacked up with Odunze, bringback of Juwan Jennings. That's fun. Geno. No week 17 correlation there, but you can get some later on. That's a fun team. Robert Griffin III has been a long-time Splash Play viewer, somebody who's I've also given advice to when I used to do team reviews as part of being a channel member of mine. And he's always drafted really nice teams, but I think has adapted hopefully in the same way I have in terms of just learning and adapting to this 2025 ADP landscape. And I like the team he built a lot, so I agree. He takes 3 QBs a little bit more aggressively than I would sometimes, but I think this room aligns actually closer to where I would view taking 3 QBs goes. All right, so You got a Rams bet. I think Algier would kind of help me close up the RB room pretty well. Algier at pick 175 to me just feels too cheap. I am going to go Tyler Algier here. I mean, just within the week, Bijan Robinson has said that Tyler Algier is the RB1B to his RB1A. I don't think that's actually true, but there are a lot of game scripts where Algier gets more involved, in particular when Atlanta has a big lead. It's when they start to get Algier out there because he's that power back. He's the one salting the game away. So Algier at 175, very happy to take. Shout out Jesse saying this is a good team. I agree. I think this is a good team. I think it's also, again, what happens in rooms where people make some misfires, where this team here is now auto drafting. He has neighbors Rashee Rice and Luther Burden as his wide receiver 3. Because he kind of let a bunch of players float around. He killed us by taking Baker Mayfield early, though I don't think I was going to get him back anyway because of this guy. If I'd gotten Baker, this team would pop a little bit more for me. But this guy, I think, overall, kind of submarining his team made all the teams in the room slightly better for it. So kudos to that guy. Again, the rule of thumb on DraftKings, where you should be playing right now, draft a team right now, get a second one for free. But the general rule of thumb on DraftKings is there's always 2 to 3 dead teams at every room you're drafting. Just people not making smart decisions. That's why I talk about the 3 rules of thumb, that there's general guidelines for you guys up top every video I do for Stochastic, because if you do that, you're probably going to be better than those 2 or 3 dead teams that occur every single time. It's without fail. There are always 2 to 3 dead teams in every single room. No disrespect to those guys. I appreciate their generosity. Giving away that sweet expected value. Wandale already went, so there will be no Wandale here. People talking about Woody Marks. Maybe we should take some Woody Marks, but now I need receiver a lot more. And tight end. I also need tight end. I mean, buying the dip on Jonnu Smith is a click that I do make fairly often. Houston, Rams, Miami. I'm going to buy the Jonnu dip here now. Just get the second tight end in. Obviously, we have Laporta. I think I could have waited on tight end, but Jonnu, to me, a little bit undervalued for a guy that got paid $10 million by a new team who desperately wanted him. Also a guy who I think Aaron Rodgers will gravitate towards, in particular in the red zone, because you go to Jonnu Smith, he's probably going to run it in. Easy check down target as well with the way Miami used him last year. I like Jonnu a good amount, so we definitely want more at receiver here. I'm going to have to get creative digging for some guys late, which is harder to do at this stage on DraftKings because a lot of the players that were sneaky, your Torrey Horton types, those are gone now. So we'll see. The Algier comment alone, has he taken Gibbs over Bijan? I mean, Gibbs has a bigger version of that with Montgomery. They both have the same flaw. The thing that makes me believe that Saquon should have been ahead of them the entire time is I really do believe that there's no similar threat for Saquon. People are talking up Will Shipley. I get it. Dylan as a power back. Maybe if they want to really limit the touch count for Saquon, they could do that. I don't think they're gonna. I don't know, for Bijan and for Gibbs, they're 2 backs that are gonna probably get 10 to 15 touches a game. I'd say closer to 15 for Montgomery. Maybe the offensive coordinator change there makes that a little bit different, but Gibbs, the upside is really just all the home run stuff. My boy Fannon's been getting more hype lately. I don't know if he's my boy. He's more, I think at this point, more Pat Corain's boy. I love Fannon pre-draft, but just didn't think he would get the draft capital. Then he got okay draft capital, and it was a team with David Njoku, and I just never really got there. I have started to take Fannon a little bit more, though, because he's getting first-team work, caught a touchdown, obviously, in that last preseason game. And really, there seems like there's some smoke on Njoku getting traded this year if, somebody who's a contender needs a tight end. It's functionally the last deal. I think it's either functionally or actually the last year of Njoku's deal. So if they trade him, Fannon's probably going to get peppered with targets on the home stretch. And he was an elite target earner, at Bowling Green. The issue is it was at Bowling Green, and I don't think this offense is going to be particularly good. Joe Flacco, when he was last, on Cleveland, had a more aggressive offense than he had last year for Indianapolis. But Flacco is pretty dog shit for Indianapolis. He was still getting the ball where it had to go, still had a high enough catchable ball rate and all that. But he wasn't Cleveland Flacco. So, and he won't play the whole year either. Like they've been pretty transparent about, Flacco's going to start the year, but they want to see all the QBs at some point. Now you have one less with Pickett. So maybe that means that, Dylan Gabriel or Shador starts later. But I think one of them starts at some point. And do you want to be tied too much to those guys? I'm not sold on that. All right, Darren Waller hanging around. Malik Washington is a guy I'm actually excited to click. Not so excited to have him as wide receiver 6, but wide receivers getting pretty ugly. And again, Malik Washington, I think there's some tangible hype behind him. So I am going to go Malik Washington, wide receiver 6 for me here. So a 3-6-6-2 build. And I would say for Washington, I think he is now a play in these last few rounds you want to take with more frequency. Troy Franklin went the pick after me. He's another guy I would have been very happy to take as well. Think he is going the right way. And I loved him coming out of Oregon, but he got buried on the depth chart last year. Now he's had real drumbeat. He is a guy that if you haven't had exposure to him, I would take him late. I'm above the field on Troy Franklin, thankfully. But Malik Washington, Troy Franklin, definitely 2 receivers I would take late. I get taking Amari Cooper late. I think he's total dust. I'd rather go the Malik Washington, Troy Franklin, Alik Ayumanor tier. But if Myers gets traded, I guess things could open up more for Cooper somehow. But it feels like he's kind of in a morass because he should be playing out wide, going with Thornton, going with Trey Tucker. Quietly an indoctrination of those guys too, like that. It's weird because Thornton, I feel like, has had really positive steam. But if you're bringing in another receiver, like it is kind of saying something that they don't love that they're getting out of those positions right now. Darren Waller came back, 3rd tight end, easy click. I think trying to get the 7th receiver would be fine at this point as well, but I'm happy to get Darren Waller at this point, get the Miami double stack. And I think we have now gotten 3 game stacks. So no, yeah, we got 3 game stacks. All right, we did it. 3 week 17 stacks. So CJ Stroud, Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams, love the early RB capital on those 2 guys. Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, think we didn't suffer too much the top 2 receivers despite taking the 2 early running backs. Mika Egbuka, again, a little bit thin for me as wide receiver 3, but I take Chris Godwin so often I should make the Egbuka bet in a meaningful way. Sometimes if he breaks out, he's probably going to run away with the job, I suppose. Sam Laporta, or there's a world where that occurs. Sam Laporta got us a nice ADP discount. Travis Hunter, part of this build as well for whatever reason. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I'm taking him a little bit down the stretch just to get some exposure there. Even though on DraftKings I have a lot of whatever exposure I do have is much cheaper. Zach Charbonnet, Keenan Allen, wide receiver 5. Tua Tagovailoa was me panicking at QB after we got sniped on a bunch of dudes, but it ended up working out okay for a Miami-Tampa Bay week 17 stack. Big value on Tank Bigsby. I don't know why. Matthew Stafford, like him, of course, with the Rams stuff we got going. Tyler Algier, week 17 Rams bring back. Johnny Smith, another tight end. Malik Washington, Miami stack. Waller, Miami stack. Boom. I don't know if that team's a boom, really. Like I read it and I was done reading it. So in that respect, boom. Middle of the board, putting on a game stack clinic. That's true. I like Robert Griffin, the Turds team right next to me as well. Nice week 17 correlation. Waller's range of outcomes is so wide. Could see everything from crashing out in South Beach and getting arrested. Why getting arrested? He hasn't ever had legal issues. The bigger concern for me with Waller would be hamstring stuff. That's always been a thing that lingers for him. But the bigger part to me is that Johnny Smith just leaves behind kind of a massive role there. And I think it's possible that Malik Washington fills some of that role. But like Johnny Smith out-targeted Tyreek, or was one for one basically in target per out run with Tyreek last year. Greatly out-targeted Jalen Waddle. If you take that out, something's kind of got to go there now. And I don't think it's Tyreek going back to where he was a couple of years ago, because there's been no positive camp reports, and he's also not been practicing for 3 weeks. So I think there's a lot of upside for Waller, but I do think the Waller Malik Washington bet's a little bit closer than it should be. Diami Brown has never risen in price on DraftKings. I think there was a brief period where he maybe went up to like early 200s, but because he didn't have any big games in the preseason and the drum beat slowed down from a little bit, people don't take Diami Brown. And he's also been fudded a little bit. I feel like content creators have gone like, well, he was terrible before. Diami Brown played really well for Washington when Noah Brown got hurt last year. And we did talk earlier about Washington being this sort of, fountain of youth for play. Not even fountain of youth, just like an upside machine for a lot of players. That said, Diami Brown still got paid about $10 million. So just shy of the Darnell Mooney, Josh Palmer, actually pretty close to the Josh Palmer price tier. He never came up. So I don't know. Diami Brown being a free click as well still. I don't think he's as buzzy, as fun as Troy Franklin is right now. Malik Washington, I think, similar thing. Previously, you saw the Torrey Horton rise. That was kind of a fun, buzzy click. I don't think we're quite there, but I still think it's a very valid click to make. So last pick coming up here. Shout out to all you guys watching live. Make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to Stochastic. Show some love if you can. Leave a comment if you're watching after the fact. My nose is so itchy today. It's driving me nuts. I don't know why. All the lines I ripped before the show here. That's how you really get good at best ball. 3 left in a CFO. There we go. Let's plug the other platform. I should have. It's on me for not looking at it first. Chunks of regular though, both at Stochastic and my YouTube channel at Splash Play Pod. So I thought I could just pull that up. Yes, go play on the other site with Chunk if you so desire. All right, Jalen Noel for free here. Damian Pierce went. I would have been interested in making that click. Really don't think we need 7th RB. Yeah. Ray McLeod on my Ram stuff. 2-2. 2-2. 2-2. I'm going to put on my prettiest 2-2, the 20th round pick here. We got the Ram stack. I'll add on one more Ram. We don't have 2-2 in it, so we don't have Puka in it, so we'll go with the other silly name, 2-2 Atwell. Final team, a 3-6-8-3. We got CJ Stroud, Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams at receiver, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, Mika Egbuka. So again, didn't love my number 3 receiver, even though here in this team, we're making a bet on Egbuka having the best possible outcome. We're in the multiverse where that occurs. I still want to give myself some coverage there because I think Egbuka, even if he starts hot, I think once Godwin comes in, the math just changes, and I don't know if that's good for Egbuka at his ADP. Tight end is Sam Laporta, though, like getting the discount there. Travis Hunter, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, Zach Charbonnet, Keenan Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, part of Miami, Tampa Bay, Week 17 correlation we built out here. Tank Bigsby, Jacksonville bet that's correlated. I don't really know why, but I just took a few Jacksonville guys. Matthew Stafford, part of the Rams Atlanta bet for Week 17. Tyler Algier, same thing. Johnny Smith, my second tight end. Malik Washington, giving us some receiver depth and stacked up a Tua. Darren Waller stacked up a Tua. Diami Brown, part of the Jacksonville bet. 2-2 Atwell, part of the Rams bet here. I would have happily taken guys like Troy Franklin above some of those guys, but instead we went correlations way, and I think that works well enough. He's Jalen Coker. I'm not a Coker head at all, but yes, that is Coker, a valid click at this point. Coker went at 215 though, so. Yeah, I don't get a lot of Coker. Certainly if Thielen gets traded, Coker's going to look a lot better. But I don't think it's a guarantee that Thielen gets traded. Seems like the Panthers want too much because they know, and they've said publicly before, like how much of an important part of Bryce Young's development Thielen was. So I think for Bryce Young at this point, especially when they're heading into like we got to decide if we want to pay, Bryce Young top 5 QB money. I just don't think they want to get rid of Thielen. I really think you need Thielen gone to open up Coker more, or you need Leggett to fail, but Leggett's a first-round pick in the same draft class. Coker was a UDFA, and it's the same regime, so I don't think Coker gets on the field unless Thielen gets moved. I know we're doing Coke jokes, but for a real take on Coker, because I think people are excited about him, I would be more excited about Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant. I think one of those guys is going to hit meaningfully for Denver. I'd be more excited about Malik Washington, to be honest. But take Coker if you want. Anyway, that's the team here. Of course, playing it on DraftKings, a pleasure as always. Make sure you're doing it down the home stretch here. Put in one entry, get a second one for free. That's a good thing to keep in mind. Porzingis here asking about Calvin Austin. Before I put up our legal ad read from Greg Ehrenberg, he's playing as wide receiver 2 right now, but Roman Wilson's been pushing him pretty hard, and Aaron Rodgers seems to be meaningfully involved on that one as well. So, look, I think he's an okay click. Is Calvin Austin, but Roman Wilson, more recent draft capital, probably more upside in terms of just his freak athletic profile. Don't think you have to take Calvin Austin in every draft, but if you want to take him, I would just probably take Roman Wilson in equal parts. But anyway, play on DraftKings. If you haven't put in a draft yet, first entry gets a second one for free, so keep that in mind. Still some promos going on. Best ball week is over, but I'm sure if DraftKings isn't close to filling here and they're about 80% plus filled, might be some deals going on DraftKings, so pay attention to the promotions tab on the DraftKings app. But right now, I want you guys to listen to Greg Ehrenberg talking about all the important things to know legalese-wise about best ball on DraftKings.
It's best ball season, and DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million best ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another best ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second chance to win big. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's two chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions do apply and void where prohibited. One per customer. Enter the Best Ball $15 million headliner contest by September 4th, 2025 to get one bonus entry. $20 entry fee required. Reward expires in 30 days. See terms at DraftKings.com/NFL-best-ball, sponsored by DraftKings.
If you love that ad read from Greg Ehrenberg, tune in today, MLB Live Before Lock, kind of at 6:15 Eastern. That is Greg and Eric, my pal. We'll be doing some shows with the NFL season coming up, so stay tuned for that. Make sure to hit that like button before you go, subscribe before you go. Check out my YouTube channel at Splash Play Pod. You can also check out the Twitter too. I put my YouTube streams on both of those, so check that out if you wish to do so. And do make sure you're gambling responsibly, guys, especially this time of the best ball year. Be mindful of your spend heading into the NFL DFS season as well. DraftKings does offer some nice tools for that too. If you want to check out your spend, their stat sheet tool I was going through the other day, seeing my overall career earnings, and it could be better, could be worse. You know, it's fun stuff to look at too. So check that out if you feel like you need to. And appreciate all you guys watching live here. We're going to have at least one more stream on Thursday. I'm not sure if we'll have one next Tuesday. It depends probably on if the DraftKings tournament fills or not. But stay tuned for that. Either way, we'll have a closeout one this Thursday on Stokastic at 3 p.m. More from me at Splash Play Pod. Check one of them out and go play on DraftKings right now. Build your teams, draft them up. You can build one as beautiful as me, I am sure. I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Stay tuned for MLB Live Before Lock at 6:15. And good luck, guys. Bye-bye.